Hey everyone, this is Disc Junkie and welcome back to Discjunkie'S bikes. So today I have another BMX purchase kind of story for you guys, but this one turned out to not be as good of a deal as my previous purchase. Now, to make a long story short, I essentially found another Facebook marketplace ad for a BMX, which I thought looked really cool because it had these plastic wheels called mag wheels essentially, and they're a big thing back in the 80s. And so this really caught my eye, and I asked him like if this was 24 inches or 20 inches, and he messaged me back saying that this was a 24-inch bike. And so he wanted 60 euro for this. And it was quite a drive for me. It was essentially 1.5 hours, just like single trip there. And so it was a bit more than I was expecting. But at the same time, you know, the wheels look really cool. And I thought this might actually be like a real 80s kind of bike. And so I decided that I should make the trip. And I messaged him asking him if I could purchase it for 40 euro because I thought this was more like in the price range I wanted to go. And then he told me that he had already found another buyer and he was going to come there in about 1 or 2 weeks. And so then he offered the bike to me but told me that I would have to pay full price and would have to be able to pick it up before this other buyer. And so I took a chance and actually drove there for 1.5 hours. And then I get there, and as it turns out, this is not a 24-inch bike. This is a 20-inch bike, which is not what I'm looking for. I already have a 20-inch BMX. That is not what I'm in the market for. And so then I'm placed in the situation where I've driven for 1.5 hours. I have to drive 1.5 hours back. And I'm sitting there just thinking, like, you know what? I'm taking it for a test spin. It's a bit smaller, like the frame size is smaller than my current bike. And it's just not a very pleasant ride. But at the same time, the wheels look cool. But I'm just deciding that, you know what? I'm not going to buy this bike. I'm sorry. I know you sort of expected to sell it. But you did give me the wrong information. So this is not what I'm in the market for. And then he tells me, but what if you get it for 40 euro? So yeah, then he drops the price to my original asking price. Because he obviously just wants to get rid of this thing. And then I have to make like a quick decision deciding like, is it worth picking up a bike which might be worth 40 euro that I might be able to resell at a better value. Potentially I might reuse the wheels because the wheels look cool. Like I have to just make a snap decision. And I decided to buy it. And I gotta be honest, in retrospect, probably not a deal I should have made. But at the time it felt like, you know, I made a choice. And you know what, let's just go ahead and take a look at this bike. And so this is the bike that I bought. And at first I thought this was essentially a Cult BMX. And Cult is a pretty well-known brand. But upon further inspection, I actually realized that it's not a Cult bike. It is actually just a child's BMX. Because I actually saw this sort of half scraped off logo. And I actually misread it as Cult because they have a very similar sort of riding style. But no, it doesn't actually say Cult, it actually says child. So yeah, I just spent 40 euro on a child's BMX. With this said, it is actually a pretty good looking bike. I do realize that the frame is smaller than the one I picked up a few weeks ago. And so yeah, it's definitely not an optimal size for me. As far as the overall shape, it's definitely in worse shape than I thought. It does have some grab handles on here, which, you know, they're pretty dirty. I'm sure you can clean them up. I don't think they're collectible or anything. The only thing that sort of really had me going for this bike was the plastic rims, or the mag wheels as they're called. And these are very much a sort of 80s trope. And I don't think these are original vintage 80s wheels, but they are in that style, and that is really damn cool. The front wheels seem to be in pretty good shape. However, the back wheel is actually kind of rusted. I mean, it's not terrible, but the thing is that on the other side here, this is pretty dark now, but this is not in the best of shape. And I mean, if I spin the crank like this backwards, that's pretty fine. But this way, I mean, the wheel stops really fast. So I think I probably need to loosen it, or maybe this is simply because the guy who put this together had no idea what he was doing. I mean, looking at like the back wheel, I almost feel like the sort of gear portion is a bit tilted. Like, I just think that the overall frame has been over tightened, so maybe I need to add like some kind of spacers. I have no idea if that's something you generally do. But yeah, this portion is definitely quite dirty and quite worn. And the problem is that I've tried to sort of move the wheel, I sort of unscrewed it, tried to move it more towards the center of the bike, because these brake pads are actually misaligned and I can't move them any further sort of down towards the wheel where they're supposed to go. And so there's a number of issues with this bike. And the only thing I really like is, god damn it, sorry, it's just everything is out of control here. So what I was gonna say, that the only thing I really like about this bike is the plastic wheels. And I mean, of course, I like the chrome style and everything, but it's really dirty. I mean, you can see there's a whole lot of sort of, I suppose, glue residue. I think this had a whole bunch of stickers on there. So I'm probably gonna clean that up. And just generally, like, you know, this is black paint that's sort of chipping off. But I was gonna say that if I move the wheel more towards the center of the bike to make the brake pads align, then the chain is too long. And also the back wheel is then starting to hit against the frame. So it feels like this wheel is not meant to go on this bike, or maybe just like the tubing is wrong. So the front wheel does seem to be a little smaller than the back wheel. So maybe I should just go ahead and sort of replace the tubing between the front and back and see if that helps. But yeah, there's just a whole lot of work, so I think I'm gonna time-lapse this. So let me go ahead and try to clean this up. We're gonna try to change the places of the wheels. We're gonna try to sort of get some new brake pads, and fuck it, let's just roll the clip. Alright, so I've now been able to clean up the bike. I shortened the chain, I sort of made a whole bunch of adjustments to the back wheel to sort of make it rideable, and well, this is the final result. And I have to say that I'm pretty happy with what I was able to do with this bike. The cleanup worked out quite well. I think the end result is actually pretty good looking. There is obviously some rust stains and stuff like that, but overall, like the cleaning and actually getting rid of all of the little plastic sort of sticker and the residue, I gotta say I'm really damn happy with this result. You will see some scuffs and marks and stuff, but this is not my doing. I will essentially say that these places where the, you know, chrome is less scuffed, that's essentially where the sticker was. So all of this stuff, which doesn't look, you know, in the best of shape, that's essentially the places that weren't covered with stickers in the beginning. And so, yeah, I mean, this is looking a whole lot better than it did when I started. And in case anybody's curious as to how I removed the decals and the stickers, I essentially used one of these sort of, I don't know what these are called. This is, I think it's essentially like a oven cleaner. You're supposed to use it for like the plates or like the glass cover if you have one of those for the oven. And yeah, so it's essentially a razor blade you can switch out. So I just did this and sort of peeled off the sticker, and they tried to sort of pull them off, but for the most time I just sort of really sort of went with it. And you know, I wouldn't use this if you have like an expensive bike and you have like paint on it, but this is old, it's chrome, and you know, it's got all kinds of stuff, and I just wanted to make it look better. I wasn't really too concerned if I made like a scratch or two, but overall I think this worked really well. So after being done with this, I essentially just cleaned it up with some rubbing alcohol. I mainly focused on all of the places where there were stickers. See, there might be some small places still where I haven't really gotten things off, but yeah, overall I think it worked really well. And as far as the wheels, I just cleaned these up with some water and soap. I didn't do the best job, but they certainly look better than they did before. I also did make some adjustments. I did swap the wheels. So now we have the front tire, or the tire that used to be on the front is now on the back. This is a smaller tire. This is the 1.75, whereas the front wheel is the 2.25. So this is a larger wheel, as you can plainly see, or larger tubing. I mean, the plastic wheels are obviously the same size, but the tubing is different. So now we have a larger tire on the front in comparison to the back. That's what I was trying to say. Sorry for confusing wheel and tire and whatnot. And so that's essentially most of what I've been doing. I haven't really made any sort of total overhaul as far as cleaning the handles and stuff like that. I essentially just focused on removing the stickers and things that were really sort of destroying the look of this bike, in my opinion. I will also say that I have made a bit of a sort of research about this. The plastic rims, or the mag wheels, appear to be a Italian brand which is labeled as Star X. I don't know if you see it on this side, maybe it's on the reverse side. So here you can see, this is not a clean side, but we have the Star X branding, and then we have a company name, which I don't know what it is, but you can essentially see small marking, says they were made in Italy. And so I did do a bit of a googling on this, couldn't find much, but it looks like these wheels might actually be original vintage 80s wheels. Not 100%, but I don't think they're newly made. I think they are actually fairly vintage. So that is kind of cool. At the same time, even if the wheels are really cool, I don't think I'm gonna reuse them. I mean, this bike did cost me 40 euro, which is more than I want to spend. And I mean, I took it for a test ride. I don't know if I'm gonna show you that. I might sort of insert that here. I mean, like I said, the frame is definitely a lot smaller than I'm expecting. I can't really raise the seat either because I don't really have the proper seat post. But yeah, let's just go ahead and pedal around this a little bit. So like I said, this frame is essentially too small for me, as you can plainly see. I know BMX bikes are generally small in size, but this is even smaller than my previous bike. So it's just never going to be a comfortable ride. I mean, I could obviously raise the seat post, but the seat post that I had that I purchased for my other BMX, this is actually not the same dimension, surprisingly. So this is not the sort of standard dimension for BMX. So I don't really know what this is, and yeah, I mean, I'm honestly not sure about this. It's just a really troublesome project to begin with. But yeah, let's just get back to whatever it is I was talking about. I also made some adjustments to the back wheel. I essentially added some of these little metal rings here, which have like the little rivets on them, just to be able to tighten this correctly. And you can also see that I even added some spacing rings, which are just metal rings I had at home, because I realized that, you know, this wheel is not wide enough for this frame, which means that the previous owner had essentially over tightened the frame. So both of these sort of pieces were essentially pulling towards the center. And yeah, like I was able to add 3 of these metal rings without problem, and I think I could have added a couple more, but I didn't want to push it too far because I only had like a couple of rings. So I did that. I also shortened the chain, which really helped in terms of the positioning, and this took a whole lot of work, more than I was expecting, but I didn't really have the proper tools. The sort of turning of this, I mean, pedaling back is fine, pedaling forward the wheel does stop fairly quickly, kind of like it did before, so I haven't really been able to fix that. The brake pads are better aligned, seeing as I've actually been able to move the wheel further towards the center of the bike. So now these are actually aligning properly and they won't really damage the tubing or the tire. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about this, but in summary, I'm thinking I'm probably gonna try to sell this. I mean, I took a gamble paying 40 euro for this, and that's something I knew in my heart. Like, I wasn't really sure if this was a bike I would want to keep. Now that I've sort of cleaned it up, I've taken a test ride, and I feel that the frame is a bit smaller than I was expecting. You know, it's not really a comfortable ride for me. I mean, just the fact that it has cool looking wheels isn't really worth it. I mean, if I can sell this at any kind of winning, if I get 50 euro, 60 euro, whatever, I'm going to be happy with that, because this was a purchase which, you know, I really changed my mind on this. With this said, it was a fun project, sort of just being able to work a bit on this bike. I did sort of learn stuff doing this. I never really shortened the chain before. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't really regret it, because it, you know, it does create content, if nothing else. But I mean, I was able to take the decals off, got to sort of try that kind of stuff out on a practice bike, if you will. And I mean, I think it made it look really cool in the end. Hopefully I can get some money's worth. And I can also give you a bit more history on this. I did mention the wheels, obviously, that I knew are from Italy, the Star X branding. But as far as the bike itself, I don't really have a whole lot of history. I will say that the stickers that were on there, that I thought were just a sort of proof of it being a child's bike, these are actually a branding from a store which is called Child Store. So Child is actually like a BMX branding. The thing is that I contacted the store, showed them a picture of this bike and asked them if this was their bike. Because I sort of assumed like, oh, it's a bike from the 90s. But they actually responded to me and told me like, well, no, this is not our bike. The stickers are from us, but the bike frame is not something that's been sold by us. So I don't really know. This bike is still a mystery. Just looking at the frame, I'm starting to think that it might actually be like an older bike, like an 80s bike, but I don't really know. There is actually like a serial number or some kind of marker on this. I don't really know what this number signifies, but just to be able to document it, I can mention that this is ACL 7K04265. So there is the entire number, in case somebody knows what this means. If it might be sort of a significant marking in terms of determining the age of this bike, do let me know in the comments. But regardless of whether it's an actual original like vintage 80s bike that might have value to it, I don't really care. It's just not a bike for me. So I'm gonna try to off this, and hopefully I'll get my money's worth. So we might do a quick update on that in just a little bit. But for now, I want to say thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this, and as usual, hope to see you all next time.